Hello, today we're going to go over our IDS Culture Awareness class. We picked a movie. It's called Black Belt. It's a Japanese martial art movie. The reason we picked it is it deals with a lot of not really military. Well, you can deem it a military movie because of the aspects of it in it is militaristic. But you can also apply it to your basic understanding of human life, how you should control your aspects in life using the code of the warrior or bushido, the traditional aspects of the Japanese culture. So we're going to name off 3 things that we find very interesting in this movie based on the black belt and how we drew the cultural awareness out of it. One is the actual application of bushido, or the way of the warrior in English terms. 2 is actually the martial arts or the karate or the karate do aspect of it, and the 3rd is the traditional lifestyle lived by the people back in that time frame. Let's set the tempo for for those who haven't seen it. The movie takes place in Manchuria, in the mountains of Manchuria during the 1900s, which was a Japanese occupation of the Pacific. This is the Japanese have left Japan and started their island invasion of the Pacific. This is way before World War II. This is during also, if you want to get technical, this is during the Hitler's rise in Germany, the Third Reich. He's just ran. They just did the Munich. Everything else, Jesse Owens just won gold as a sprinter in Germany in the Munich games back in the 30s. So this is the time frame of the movie. So we're going to go ahead and talk about bushido, and the things that we're going to talk about bushido is the 3 aspects of it. One is the way of the warrior. Those who followed bushido deemed themselves gods in the Japanese culture, which means that they were above a pedestal, above everybody else. You couldn't control land. Your marriage was set up through bushido. You never married down, you always married up or even. And 3, it was a warrior culture. It means they were trained to fight. They were scholars. During this time frame back then was only the bushido could get the school. You could go to school, like going to college for us would be considered bushido, a privilege of going there and learning higher learning. But their higher learning wasn't like what we think of higher learning. It was aspects of archery, sword, unarmed, armed combat, and everything else. And we'll get more into that a little bit later on under the martial art aspects of this presentation based off this movie. The second thing was bushido's based off of kind of 7 principles, but I'm only going to hit 4 of those principles. Principle number 1 was encouragement. They encourage each other to be better day by day. Everything should be better. You should never go to bed with something undone, because it wouldn't better you the next day. And when you wake up in the morning, you should try to be better than the next day, the day before you were. So it's an encouragement. They encourage each other in this warrior culture and this warrior class. 2, nonviolence. It was not a real violent culture. Yeah, there was sword fights, there was duels to the death and stuff, but for the most part, it was very a non-violent society taught by the Japanese. Number 3 was politeness. They deemed themselves very polite. They bowed. They showed respect to their elders. Everything else. It's kind of like the how we are today. If you're going to see your great grandmother, you showed her respect. That was the same way how they showed respect back then, was bowing, shaking hands. And if bushido or samurai were coming down the street, everybody moved out of sign of respect. It wasn't the sign of of timidity. No, it was a sign of respect. So everybody moved off to one side or the other and kind of opened the road up for the warriors back then. And it's evident in the movies when you saw the Japanese army coming down the road. Everybody was still stayed on the road, but when the last of the samurais in the movie started coming down the same road, everybody moved for them out of a sign of respect. So they're real polite people, non-violent, and also honor and loyalty was the last one they wanted to hit on. And this movie deals with a lot about honor and loyalty with the last students of the movie. When the master dies, they show honor by honoring his request not to use his karate as a means to gain employment, prize fighting, or harming those who hurting others. It was meant to encourage and help others that are back then who wanted to learn the art, teach it, not just hold on to what he has and then they die with it. But it also was in self-expression of who was going to get the black belt, was the honor and loyalty. They had loyalty to the master and they had honor, but when the master died, they had to figure out who were they going to honor and loyalty on their own lifestyle and who was going to ultimately get the master's black belt. But we're going to touch more on the black belt aspects under the next hit, which brings us to the martial art aspect of the film. Karate was designed back in the ancient days by the Okinawans because of there was no way they could have weapons when the Japanese occupied Okinawa and Manchurian China. They only the army could have weapons. So karate was designed as a form of non-combat, of unarmed combat against an armed opponent. And it's very evident in the movie that you see is, yeah, the Japanese army, they relied on swords and stuff because in battle, it's kind of, you don't really want to close the distance, but when you don't have a weapon, the safest place to be is right up next to the person in a combative mind. So that's kind of like the history of karate a little bit. If you would like to know some more, just ask us after class, or two, just go to Google or Wikipedia.com and type in karate, and there's hundreds of different styles, 100 different histories on each style of karate, has its own unique lineage. But overall, karate, that was the starting point and the reason why they developed that kind of combatives back then. And karate terminology actually means open hands. It means I'm in open hand strikes and everything. Because if you clinch fist someone, you break your hand. You can't work. You can't provide for your family. The second aspect of the movie that you see a lot is the bowing aspect. It's not the sign of intimidation or intimidation. It's a sign of respect. You bow, just like shaking hands in the Western world. You shake hands with someone, you give them the benefit. They're like, hey, how you doing? You reach out, shake their hand. Same thing. They don't shake hands. They just bow. So it's a sign of respect. Also, the last part of it is on the martial art aspect was master-students. The master and students was based off, there's a master and there's a student. There's always someone there you're going to learn from. And when the master dies, the students are there for themselves. They lived with this master for 20, 30 years, learned his teachings, but yet when he died, they were left like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, they don't know. So there's the history, the family tradition of an honor and loyalty between the students and the master. The last one we want to hit on that we pulled out of this is actually the traditional lifestyle of the Japanese back then. We talked about bowing as a sign of respect, sign of, oh man, you know, you're older than me, I'm going to hold the door, I'm going to move away. The second one is the karate traits, open hands. You don't really want to use strikes with karate. You really want to deflect and counter your opponent, which is evident in the three styles of the students. The students is hardcore. He goes straight up, one punch, the guy drops dead. The other one is more of a linear or circular movement, means he's just using it to defend himself. And these raise, in the end, I'm not going to give you the ending, but it raise aspects who has the better karate and who's ultimately going to inherit the master's black belt. And the last one is no weapons. The master didn't want his students using weapons because it's just too much to rely on. Because if you have a weapon, you're not really using your mind. You're using the weapon, which is just an extension of one's arm of yourself for attack. So that was pretty much the cultural awareness on Bushido, Way of the Warrior, the karate aspect, and the traditional on this movie. So if you want to know any more, just ask us, or just go to youtube.com, type in black belt. The first one on the search page is the English version. It's a really great movie. It's about 90 minutes, so you know, grab a Coke, grab some popcorn, and watch the movie. Enjoy.
And cut.